Greetings, everyone. Your cartoonist pal Stan here with a brand new episode of 50 Years in the Dungeon. The show I'm doing to celebrate the fact that tabletop role playing as an art form and a hobby and something fun to do is over half a century old. And so am I. Wait, no. The big thing is our whole hobby and game industry is kind of reached that magical point, and I'm celebrating it by having conversations with people who I know who've worked in the industry. Some people I only barely know, and while we talk, I will work on a cartoon homage to a classic piece of D&D art. Well, let's say first 50 pieces were all D&D. Gaming art is now fifth classic piece of gaming art. Um, that's what the show often is. Other times, I'm taking a piece that I started in one of those shows and working on finishing it up. So it's usually during an interview, during a conversation, I only get the pencil stage of the drawing done. So I want to finish nice drawing when I'm done. So I come back sometimes and do these work in progress shows, and that's what we're doing tonight. I'm going to be working on a drawing that I began when I was having a conversation with Alex Thomas, uh, the one of the main developers for Mutants and Masterminds for Green Ronin Games, Green Ronin Publishing, and it's well, you'll see it in a minute. So that yeah, if you watch that show, you know the piece. If you didn't, you'll get to see it in a minute. And I won't have a formal interview, but I am lucky enough to have someone who's going to join me tonight and just kind of hang out and chat. His name is Aaron Truitt. He is an independent game designer and a community manager, a community builder for digital games. And he's also worked in public relations. He's been in and out around the gaming industry for 15 plus years. Super cool guy and very knowledgeable. And so I always look forward to just chatting to him, but I look forward to sharing my chat with him with you guys today as we bring in Aaron. Aaron,
Hello.
thank you for joining me tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here, man. Happy anytime I get the chance to sit and chit chat with you. It is a good day. So.
I consider it time well spent. When no, I don't mean time with me. Yeah, I consider it's time well spent for you, buddy. No, I get
I lucked out. I won the lottery,
right.
and I get to talk to you tonight.
Today's your lucky day.
Yeah. We have
Hey,
Michael
Michael,
in chat.
how's
Yeah,
it
there you
going? Am I accusing RPGs of being old farts? You know what? If only if I'm casting that aspersion on myself. So
go.
yeah,
Hi,
it's
Michael. How's it going, man?
it's a mature hobby, right? That when most of us got into it, it was a young
Oh
hobby. It
yeah.
was a young activity. It was finding itself. Here at 50 years, it's had some time to have different. I mean, I've talked about that over the first year of the show, talking with people about each year of D&D and gaming. Right? It went through eras, and it changed a little. We had some controversies. We had some conflicts, but at this point, it as a hobby, it's stabilized.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
I would say absolutely it's stabilized. It's I for me, I to a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And hello, Carrie Andrew from Maryland. How you doing tonight?
Hey,
Um,
Carrie.
to me, I look at it from kind of a game design perspective. So for my
Of
eyes,
course you
I
do.
see it. Yeah, exactly. So I see it as the product is mature enough that now we're seeing kind of all of these offshoots.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could certainly argue that like in the 90s, we saw some of that, but it was not like
Well, I
this.
mean, we saw it. I mean, the thing is, we saw it in the '80s, but that was kind of the explosive. We can try anything. I think right
Yeah.
now, while I say it's mature and stabilized, it's stabilized as you were saying, with a not as one thing, but as a large field that we have different kinds of versions, and they all uh, you know they have different audiences, or there's a lot of crossover, but They can each
Yeah.
have their own field, and there's enough to go around.
Yeah, a market space for everyone, no matter
Yeah,
what kind of game they want to put out there. Yeah, I mean, we've definitely moved beyond the original. If everything gets compared to D&D, I see games that are coming out now that aren't being compared to D&D. They're being compared to Sword World or Call of Cthulhu. I've seen a bunch of games get compared to
right.
Call of Cthulhu or any of those games. So yeah. Personally, I compared Mutants and Masterminds, which you mentioned in the beginning. I compared that one to the Marvel Superheroes Advance set when I
Right.
was a kid. So yeah, but
I
yeah,
Yeah, when I came in, I talked about this before. Um, the the first game I played was D&D, but the game that I really dug into was Villains and Vigilantes.
oh
So it's not all D&D. It never was all D&D, but
yeah,
it D&D has always been the 100-pound gorilla in the room.
right, right. There's it's in the video game industry, we see this all the time. We have games that are supposed to be the king killer. So there's someone sitting in the seat that's the top
Yeah,
dog and everyone acknowledges like
yeah,
that's the big kid on the block. But there's always supposed these other games show up and they're supposed to be the king killer and they're going to take the throne and they're going to be the top dog. I I don't know that we're in a point right now where we're going to see, even with everything going on with WotC.
yeah.
I'm not sure that we're in a spot where we're going to see it get, you know, dethroned.
I don't. Yeah. So just to one of the funny things going on in chat. Carrie is one of the people that I played Villains and Vigilantes with back in the day. He was in that 8-year campaign that I
Oh,
talk about uh, from time to time.
yeah.
So there were
Champions
there
and
were three or
heroes.
four main people among us. Carrie was one of the core three.
Yeah. That's I played my very first role playing game was Gamma World.
Mm-hmm.
It was third edition, and my babysitter Loretta played it with us when I was 9.
All right.
And so my earliest memories of a role playing game is Jethro Tull Aqualung, my little brother playing Atari, and me sitting at a table asking like, why do I need a 10-foot pole in my backpack? Like, why do I need all these candles? What the hell am I doing to do with? And she was like, you just have to trust me. You're gonna
Trust me.
need these. Write them down. Yeah. Oh, champions. Champions went on to
Yeah.
be an MMO. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that was God, those old superhero RPGs were the best, man.
I think it's interesting that Gamma World was your first game. There are a few people. It there there are a few people I know who say D&D was not their first game from
Mhm.
my age and your age, right?
Right.
But nowadays, it's it's no longer going to be true that 80%
Oh.
90% of the people their first game will be D&D. I mean that's when I say gaming has matured. It's it's kind of that, right? In fact, one of the things I say to the people when they come on to interview is I start by asking them, how did gaming come into your life? Because in that era, we needed a gaming secret origin. We needed something to
Yeah.
happen. It wasn't something that could be assumed. Nowadays, it's kind of assumed if you are a kid growing up, you're going to be introduced to gaming, and the question will be, what games grab you, not how did you find games.
Yeah. I didn't know at 9 years old. I don't know what 9-year-old does know this, but I didn't know at 9 years old that like that you could take the game of imagination. I was playing with GI Joe in the backyard. I didn't know that there was like a structured way to play
Right.
that, and I definitely didn't know that like we could include more nuanced, more adult stories. Like we could really be hobbits on their way to Mordor. Like or whatever. Like I had
Right.
no idea that any of that was possible. And when it was, I mean, it utterly changed my reality. It made it so that I went into games. It made it so that I did game design. You know what I mean? Like it completely changed me.
Yeah. Um, so did Loretta bring Gamma World to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a picture. I actually have it as my, I don't even know if I can, yeah, I can show this. This doesn't have anything on it. Yeah.
Oh,
My
it
lock
is.
screen,
Oh, it just turned off.
poop. All right, we'll try again. My lock screen is
Yeah.
the old Gamma World cover. I saw that book cover and was like,
What is it?
what is this? Why does this look so amazing? Who's the person in the Iron Man armor, and why do they have a giant laser gun, and why are
Right.
they riding on that huge awesome monster? And I have to know everything. And she was like, how good is your reading? And I have dyslexia, so it was
Right.
very poor. But I was so motivated to read that, like, I could easily say my ability, like, to write copy print and write fiction and all of those skills that I built afterwards.
Right.
Role playing games helped me do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think you know what I know from having talked to them that there are a lot of people that have similar stories. Right. Their math skills were nothing until they found out they needed to understand them in order to play the games, or history, or very often reading and writing, right? That
Mm-hmm.
they struggled with that, but the desire, I've got to know what this thing is.
Yes. Yes, it's I think that role playing games, there's actually, I wish to goodness sake I could remember her name. There's a woman who's a psychologist who runs uses Dungeons and Dragons specifically for therapy. So
Hmm.
she'll use it with people in therapy. I really honestly believe, and I know that now there's science to back it up, that it helps develop social skills.
Yeah, yeah. I
You
heard. I
know?
mean, it's funny that I certainly role playing as a psychological therapeutic activity way predates role playing games.
Mm.
But it's funny, every 5 or 6 years, I hear another report on, from on the same station that reported it last time. Like, hey, guess what? People are using games for therapy. Like they suddenly discovered something they forgot from 5 years ago.
Oh,
And I
isn't
just
it
heard one this
amazing?
week on or last week on NPR. There was a report about uh, a psychologist who was using role playing games in their therapy, and it still
Yeah.
had that kind of golly gee, folks, imagine that
Yeah, can you
kind of
believe
yeah.
it? uh, Michael in chat said, when I was introduced to D&D in 1980, I thought it'd been I thought it had always been
Yeah,
around, and didn't realize it was only 6 years old.
I know, because
I definitely felt that way.
it seems so natural, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're standing in the field when it's like there's nothing and then there's something. Eventually, you got to get introduced. You get introduced to it, and it feels like, oh, of course, that's got to be around. It makes perfect sense, but it hadn't. Right? We came in that era when it someone had, the Gygaxes and the Arnesons and uh, all the early game publishers reached into the sky and plucked it off a tree.
Yeah, yeah. I actually have been doing my big research project recently has been what did we lose from older role playing game designs? There are two examples that I like to use. There's tons more examples, but
Yeah.
there's two
Hold on.
examples.
Before you do that,
Yeah, yeah.
now is
Go
when
for it.
I'm going to switch over.
Oh yeah, it's time.
Because I'm going to talk to you all night because I love it. But we're doing it online because I'm going to do some artwork.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go, and I'm doing the. This is from the Mutants and Masterminds Adventure, Astonishing Adventures, The Lost Library, and so when last people saw this, it was in its pencil finish. I've done the inks already. Very often I'll do these shows when I'm working on the inks. But this is what it looked like at the end of the show last time. I managed to do the inks a couple of weeks ago. So right now, here's where we're at, and I'm going to start doing some coloring on it. So you were saying, oh, you locked up. Is that? Oh, that's not good. Well, I'm gonna, while you're hopefully getting that sorted out, hopefully it's not a problem on my end. I'm gonna do a little preparation work and create groups for the coloring. And all right, I was about to say, hey there,
Did it work?
you're back.
Oh no, it didn't work.
What you can? Oh no, it's working. It is work. Yes, it is.
Hey, all right.
It. Oh, Michael says it frequently happens when I fire up the tablet. Oh, okay. Hmm.
Well, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. I'm back. Doesn't matter.
All right. I think in the long run, I think I need a. I think I need more processing speed on my computer.
Oh,
In the end, I think that's probably the problem.
I have an extra computer sitting right next to me. We will have a discussion about how much it costs to just mail that bitch to you. Oop, language. Sorry. How much it costs to just send that to you.
Well,
Uh, but yeah. What the heck was I talking about?
um,
Oh, rules study. Yeah. Uh, so I've been researching rules that we've kind of lost in old role playing games,
yeah,
and there are two examples that I really like. Although one of them we didn't really lose it, we see other versions of it kind of come back. But the main one is um, in the older versions of Dungeons and Dragons, they did not have an issue with the classic problem, and this was a huge issue when I was a kid, when I was a teenager playing D&D. Um, it was the GM says, okay, you search for traps, make a roll, and then the players say, we want to search for traps again. Why can't we just
right,
keep searching for traps? So older versions of D&D actually had resolved this. They did proceduralized turns where it would take 10 minutes for a turn when you're in a dungeon exploring, and then each person gets to take one of these 10-minute actions. They could scout ahead, or they can try and pick a lock, or they can try and search for traps or whatever. But by proceduralizing it and tying it to time, that gives you this ability to add in things that build tension. Creatures are searching around looking for you, or retreat rules. Yeah,
right,
yeah, that exactly. Michael in chat just said old rules no longer used. Retreat rules. Justin Alexander spoke about it at Page. Yeah, it's these, like, there is no situation other than possibly the animal being completely cornered and unable to go anywhere, where a wolf will fight you to the death.
right,
The wolf is going to run. It doesn't want to die. You're not becoming the meal that it hoped you would become, so it's going to leave. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that.
The
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I can, you know me, I can just keep talking. There
Well,
was Marvel superheroes, the you basically got to uh, make up what you wanted your power to do. So if you were like I don't know, this is a DC character, but if you were like the Flash and you could run super fast,
Right.
you could run super fast and try and create a whirlwind while you were running and maybe suck up the bad guy or whatever. That was a power stunt. And I always thought that was such a cool, like, kind of storytelling negotiation between the games master, or in that game, the judge, and the players. And always felt like D&D Magic would have really benefited from some kind of, I don't know, more storytelling centric version of spellcasting. Something where,
Well, I mean that's a huge discussion point that goes all the way back to the beginning of Vancian magic versus more open um, creative style. Nope, and there he goes again. I didn't do anything.
it just keeps kicking me out. It's all good. We'll see how it goes.
I say, yeah, that's a argument or a discussion that goes all the way back to the very beginning, because this what we now just kind of blithely call Vancian magic,
Mm.
because it's based on the stories, the fiction of God, I'm forgetting Vance's first name now, but
I never remember it because I always say Fancy and Magic, and I know
right,
that it came from an author, and
yeah,
that's
but it comes from that, and just looking, I realized that we can see part of this guy's skin, but he's clearly wearing a suit underneath it. Um, because at the start, that just it wasn't presumed that that's how magic worked. In fact, if you ask most people, it was more along the lines of what you're talking about. We had
Mm,
to learn that this is the way it's done,
right.
and now it's kind of presumed because D&D is the 100-pound gorilla.
Hey,
Um,
Michael, will you refresh my memory, man? The use Ars Magica has a more interpretive system like that. Is Ars Magica the one with like the rune system? Am I remembering that correctly? Jack Vance. His first name is
Jack
Jack.
Vance, yes, Jack.
There we
Uh,
go. Thank you. But yeah, I thought Ars Magica used uh like combinations of runes, and then you got to basically custom build your spell effects out of that. It's been a very long time since I looked at any of that though. But yeah, yeah. Uh
but I mean, you've had a lot of. So I guess the one that I wound up playing with most in a publishing way is the Dragonlance Fifth Age game, because I did a lot of design for that, which had a very open spellcasting system. Right, you same kind of thing you're talking about. You'd build an effect, and
mm,
and you'd get a difficulty, and if you could, you're in that case the narrator, not the DM, approved of it, then you got to do it.
mm,
Um, but there's
yeah.
a lot of people um, who find that troubling, because either the game master, the narrator, is not
Mm,
comfortable saying no, or not
yeah.
not confident uh, in adjudicating on or understanding what might be too powerful, or might be you know the right difficulty to set. Um, uh, Basically, what I'm saying is that in order to do that, you really need an experienced game master in order for it to go well.
I, I thank you anyway, Michael. I appreciate it. I agree with you. I think maybe I am placing too much importance on the ability of the the judge to be able to adjudicate and just go on the spot. I can definitely see where maybe a younger or less experienced game master might just let everything go or let absolutely nothing pass through. Um, yeah.
But that also said, one of the things that we all find after you've been playing for a while and you look at how things are done, you go, well, why doesn't it work this other way? And
Mm.
then you start playing around with it. And those of us who do that a lot wind up being game designers.
Yeah, I think the first thing I ever quote unquote I still call it modding.
Yeah,
Even though it's tabletop stuff, I still call it modding. There was a tabletop game made by Games Workshop called Mordheim
yeah,
that I was just utterly obsessed with. And they stopped putting out books for it and stopped supporting the project, but the community was still there. So I wrote like an unofficial second edition of Mordheim because I wanted one.
right.
you know, so that was, yeah. And then that carried over to video games and then back to tabletop. I really think both the tabletop and video game industry have enormous amounts they can learn from each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I ooh, here's a fun one. Here's a fun one because this tends to generate like a very strong reaction in people. The question,
Yeah,
it's nothing wildly contentious, but it is interesting. So, uh, you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, and you've made it to the Red Dragon's cave, and now it's time for you and your fellow adventurers to face off against this massive, horrifying red dragon. Now, the way it would normally operate is the games master would dictate the actions of the dragon.
right,
What if you didn't have the GM have to control the dragon? What if the dragon operated on some other set of mechanics, like a set of playing cards where it has essentially an AI driving it? Or a threat system like we see in a lot of modern RPGs, where a creature gets aggro to a specific target, and then the entire aggro system is used.
right.
What do you think of taking video game mechanics and using some of those mechanics to lower GM load, especially as it pertains to combat?
Well, my simplest reaction is, yeah, that sounds great. Let's build that. My more complicated reaction is that that grows out of uh, board gaming and miniatures gaming, right? So that kind of thing pre-existed role playing games. It was already out there, um,
Mm-hmm.
but the, so you get this weird back and forth between those kinds of rules that have happened over the history of gaming, right? Where it, the in early role playing games, it was like, well, no, we it shouldn't. It's the GM is telling the story. This is a narrative thing, and even then, it wasn't. It really was a miniatures combat thing. And
Yeah.
over time, it's gotten even more narrative, where we now have games where it's not a randomized thing. The players get to say what the monsters do in like Powered by the Apocalypse and games like that, where there's a lot of player agency, not just in what their characters do, but in what the how the world reacts to them. And I mean, it's now a really broad spectrum, but certainly a game. Anytime you're doing a game that's supposed to work solo, you need some kind of mechanic like you're talking about, where
Yeah.
you know you you don't just self-regulate. You you've got a basically an analog AI was what
Yeah.
you're building
Yeah.
there, right? This happens and there's a mechanism that makes decisions for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michael. First, Michael said I combined Gamma World and D&D to get Thundar the Barbarian when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I 100% endorse that. I think you did that. You were playing the game correctly. Um, and AD&D second edition and Gamma World fourth edition were actually compatible with each other. So you could actually run the two together, which I did, and it was just as glorious as it sounds. Uh, and then your next question, Aaron, is Nerdarchy your website? I missed it in the intro. Stan said so. No, I am still, I think I still run I'm their administrator for their Discord still. Basically, I did a bunch of community stuff with them. I did Monster Mash videos with one of the Nerdarchy guys, Nate, where we would just come up with new D&D monsters for 5th edition. And then I basically just did some like my usual spiel, PR, and helping community build and write their rules for how their Discord works and that kind of thing. But it is Dave is actually the head guy over at Nerdarchy, and he's quite fantastic. He is quite fantastic. He's a really entertaining guy to talk to. He used to be like a personal trainer, and he's just a barrel of laughs. He's tons of energy, very excited, always wants to play games, just fun to be around. So yeah, good guys over there. But not my website. I wrote 2 articles for them as well. One was about elves. Uh, no, I am not Nerdarchy. I am not Nerdarchy. I'm still like, I don't know, loosely affiliated with them. I still help if they need help, but yeah, just an excited fan. I like the old guys talking about games. They bring a different perspective to it. There's also a couple of groups of very young guys I like watching. But yeah. Oh yeah, and an article about dwarves that was rather contentious. Because I my the thesis of my argument in my dwarf thing was that dwarves are really stupid. And this is
Oh, that
not,
won't piss anyone off.
yeah, not because they're dwarves. That's not at all the reason. My problem is them being in their like mountain strongholds. There's like no reason that they shouldn't have like farming outside the strongholds where they're raising like oats and other crops that grow out there. Some depictions of fantasy dwarves have them like riding giant rams. So there's like cloth, cheese, mounts, work animals. Like there's a ton of better ways to do it than just dwarves live in their stronghold and harvest mushrooms. Like where does the beer come from? Where does the meat off the bone come from? Like, you know what I mean? Like I had questions when I was a kid, and I was like, I'm answering them. I'm writing something. I'm answering this. So, Chris said, "Hi all. I have such great memories of Gamma World because my brother sprung it on us as DM when my paladin entered a portal into this unknown world of lasers and mutant rabbits. Hell yes, that is fantastic." Oh, you were reading the article about elves? Yeah, I might have gone after the elves too.
You've got some bones to pick, huh?
I well, I wanted I want to feel immersed when I'm playing. So I want to believe in the worlds I'm playing in. Um Rings of Power tried to answer that farming question. Yeah, exactly. There's been a few different takes on it. One of the things I say about dwarves is like you could easily make the argument that they have such an enormous stockpile of gold and gems and iron and rare minerals and all kinds of things that they're just trading all of that. But
Yeah.
imagine being a huge military power, which the dwarves are, and being entirely dependent on all of your neighbors for food. The end result of that is that now you're going and fighting other people's wars. So you're not being the dwarves hiding in your castle or your stronghold. You're being the dwarves constantly marching to war to try and, I don't know, defend your only source of food. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I mean, there's
I,
so many. I mean, I love Tolkien as much as the next guy, but
mhm.
well, most next guys, I interact with some pretty deep Tolkien scholars, so I don't love it as much as they do. But you know, there are things like that are worth re-examining as you're making new worlds to play. There's a lot of assumptions that come in that maybe shouldn't be assumed.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I used, do you remember, Stan? Come on, man. You're going to be able to remember this. There was a D&D setting that had red steel in it, and you got powers from the red steel.
Yeah,
What the heck was that called?
Red Steel.
Red steel? Is that what it was
That was,
called?
well,
Do
that's
you
what the
know?
box set was. Yeah, I don't remember what the name of the world was, but the box set was Red Steel.
Yeah. So it was, um, for my crossover of Gamma World and D&D, I used the mutant power generation, and then I used a Dragon magazine article that had, I don't remember if it was called Cinnabar or Cinnabril, but basically it was like this red dust you could take. I think that article
Yeah.
was written the same time the first Dune movie came out. Like it was synced up rather nicely. But the idea was the players could try and imbibe this enormous amount of this like drug or substance, and then they'd permanently lose points of constitution, but then they'd gain these mutant powers, which I just took from Gamma World. So yeah, very fun.
That sounds awesome.
Mm-mm-mm. I'm reading chat. That's a fascinating thought about fantasy dwarves. There's only so much mushrooms you can eat down there.
Mhm.
I wrote a whole rather argumentative article about it. So if you if you have some tolerance for that, that you could go read that. That was a fun one to write. Did you see the news about Colbert and Lord of the Rings?
I did. I did. He has
What?
been hired to do the screenplay for an upcoming Lord of the Rings
Oh
film.
God! Yes, this is the way. Yeah,
I
that was. It's
don't know
Colbert.
the details, but I saw it pop up in my thread, and I did a little dance to. I checked to see, is this real, and it turned out to be real. So I did a little dance of happiness.
It's one of those things. It's I always remember him as the actor who played Magneto, but he was also the actor who played Gandalf. And I never remember Sir Ian McKellen,
Ian
something like that.
McKellen, yeah.
Ian McKellen. Yeah. Um, so Sir Ian McKellen would walk around with a copy of Lord of the Rings books, like whatever he's working on, he's walking around with a copy of the book, and he'd be like, there's a clip of him going, well, Tolkien didn't write it that way so that we could ignore it, like, because he's irritated about the dialogue they're doing, and he's like, can we please just do what the book says? So that's what you want to see, you know.
You know who also apparently did stuff like that was Christopher Lee, who played Saruman. Who
Oh,
was apparently very into the proper pronunciation.
oh yeah.
So, okay, okay.
Yeah, let's do it. You want to do it that way? Let's do it that way. Great. Uh, oh, and his son is a screenwriter. Okay, that makes more sense. But yeah, I was not following along with Colbert news. I saw something about someone said something about Colbert and Lord of the Rings, and I was like, okay,
Yeah,
but I could
whatever.
probably,
Of
I can
course.
safely ignore that. That's not real, right? Apparently, it's real.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. That's the world we live in, right? Yeah. My first reaction, as I say, my first reaction was, all right. Well, let's check and see if this is this isn't just some made up clickbait.
Oh. They're making it as a sequel, but based on chapters 3 through 8, where they meet Tom Bombadil. Oh, Tom Bombadil.
What?
Yeah. Samwise daughter finds out about the missing chapters. Uh,
What?
yeah. I think Tom Bombadil is a cool character because my only fear about that is that they're going to. Tolkien said about Tom Bombadil that he never decided what Tom Bombadil
Yeah,
was, that some things in fantasy are meant to not be understood. That's what kind of preserves that beautiful fantasy feeling. I really hope they don't try and define Tom Bombadil in some way that, I don't know, would violate that
right.
idea. I
Well,
like
I
the
tell you,
idea.
just from I'm a pretty besides liking Tolkien as much as I do, as I say, which is not exceptional among my group. um, I'm a big fan of Colbert's, and I know that he respects
Yeah.
the material too much to do what you just said. Like that will not
No.
happen under his watch.
Yeah, if they, as long as they're preserving kind of the magic and the mystery of the Tom Bombadil character, I'll pay wherever I need to. Do I need a new streaming service? Am I going to a theater? Whatever they want to do, I'm there. Yeah. Oh God, you guys got me thinking about Game World a lot now. Kill, killing me. Yeah, I really, those games back then, villains and vigilantes. I haven't thought about villains and vigilantes since
Yeah,
the fourth grade. That's Uh,
we yeah, let's say that was the game that when I got to college. So I played some D&D in high school or junior high school, and then couldn't find anyone to play with in high school. Kind of lost it despite wanting to play more. I like
yeah.
only at summer camp it would come up here or there. And
Mm.
I get to college and I know get to college there's going to be a gaming group, and I find out where they are and I go to meet with them, and turns out they were not my group. I wound
I've
up
had
being
those.
I wound up being friends with some of them later. It turns out that they were mostly not college students, or not they were local. So there were a couple of them which were members students on campus, and a couple of them were just locals. This was their local game group, and
Mm.
they basically were gatekeeping to keep the to make sure that not just everyone came and joined their game. Right?
Yeah.
They got to use campus facilities, and they had to let anyone in, but they didn't make it easy. And
Oh,
so, like we, everyone had to start with a first level character, despite the fact that the campaign was running at eighth or ninth level, and it just wasn't fun.
yeah.
Uh, so I wound up going back and in the dorm. I Comics were the other thing I was big into, so I kind of leaned into comics, and we
Mm.
were talking about it, and someone was saying we had a Dragon magazine and said, "Hey, look, there's a superhero game here. It's an ad for Villains and Vigilantes." So we got it, and we started playing it, and like I say, that turned into an 8 year campaign with multiple GMs and 8 running storylines and tons of house mechanics and reworking the rules, and it was
Yeah.
great.
My high school gaming group, that was when I went basically like, I guess there was like 3 years where I didn't really get to game. I was a 17-year-old male, and
Yeah,
you can just take all of that however you want. That's what I was at that age, and I
yeah,
didn't game during then. But prior to that, I was in a Shadowrun group called Population Control. Um, and that was, oh, that was a mess. It was, again, as you were saying, very clicky, and they had their group and they didn't want to let other people in. It was tough. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Michael said townies. Carrie said, how
Yeah,
did that even start? Who initiated it? Um,
the the group. Well, it was. I don't know. I mean, we know some of the people that were involved in that, Carrie. uh, uh, but I don't know how it got started. Um, but they'd been running their campaign on campus, and because they had students and it was activity that was open to anyone who wanted to join, they were like an official club.
mm.
They just didn't make it easy for other people to join their club.
Uh, Paul Rua said, one of my, hopefully I'm saying your name correctly, by the way. One of my favorite things in a setting is when you get the impression that every background extra is living their lives that might intersect with the main narrative, but is very much its own story. Yeah. Oh, Carrie said, no, I mean us.
Oh, who started that group? That was going to be me and Chartreuse, the friend whose nickname was Chartreuse. Um, because, well, so here we go. Secret origin stuff here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, those of you, this may come as a shock to some people out there. Stan is not my real name. None of my names are Stan. That's my pen name. And people who followed me know that because my early publishing here was under my given name, which is Stephen. My name's Stephen Brown, and in the dorm, uh, there was also a guy named Steve Gold, and so and there were other Steves around, and at least one other got the nickname Steve off Scandinavian Blue because he said, "Hey, I want a color too." But then our friend, whose name was also Steve, said, "Hey, I want a color," and someone came in, looked at him, and said, "You look like a chartreuse to me," and so it stuck, and
Oh,
that
wow.
became his. And then he just became chartreuse. Everyone just called him chartreuse.
Oh,
Anyway,
I, my, my nickname is a misspelled version of another name that just I had to just accept it at some point. At some point,
yeah,
I'd had it for so long, and being a community manager, everyone in the community like calls you by your whatever your online handle is.
right.
So mine is Canada, but it's spelled completely wrong because I'm the one that spelled it the first time, and I didn't know how that name was spelled. I had watched the movie Akira.
Right. I
I
was going to say
loved the
this is an Akira thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I loved Kaneda. I wanted to have his name, and so I spelled it completely wrong, and so that's my name everywhere now is Kaneda, but it's Kienata, which is so not how you spell that word. Name, yeah. Uh,
um, yeah. So So to answer Carrie's question, Chartreuse, no, Chartreuse was a also a D&D fan, and he got Dragon magazine, and
mm.
we were talking about how cool it would be, and he said, "Hey, look, it's a role playing game in advertised in Dragon," and so we went to the comic/game store and ordered it,
Mm.
and the rest is history.
Oh, Dragon magazine. That reminds me of paid GMing where you paid it was like 99 cents a minute. They had those advertisements in the backs of comic books. They had them in Dragon magazine, and they had them in a bunch of the like Boy Scouts stuff that they would hand out. Yeah, those
Really?
were yeah, it was 99 cents a minute to have a GM. I've done paid GMing like
I've,
recently, and
I've done it
it's
too, but it's not,
yeah,
99 cents. Are you sure you're
yeah,
not
but
talking about a 900 number?
it was not that. It was not that. It was right next to like the X-ray glasses advertisements and yeah, Boys Life. That was the
Oh,
magazine that they
boy's
would have.
life.
Yeah. I didn't know anybody in Boy Scouts played Dungeons and Dragons, and then I was sitting in a bunk in one of the like big camps that we had all gone to,
Mm.
and I could hear D&D being played. And
Uh,
I carried my D&D character with me everywhere. So my elf Nimrol I took my elf Nimril and I walked down there and was like, "Can I play D&D with you guys?" And they're like, "It's kind of complicated." They were all like, I don't know, 16, 17. "It's
right.
kind of complicated." And I was like, "No, no, I have a character and I have dice. I
Yeah.
know how to play the game already. I know all the rules." Yeah. So yeah.
And they said, "Great, can you explain it to us?"
yeah. 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 That was a weird being trying to be a games master as a little kid. That was some bizarre situations come out of that.
No doubt, no doubt.
We played a game of D&D which when you're GMing little kids, I've gotten to GM little kids as a little kid, but I've also gotten to do it as an adult as part of an after school program.
Yeah.
When you're GMing little kids as a little kid, things just go off the rails and you hope something gets done. Most
Mhm.
of the time, very little gets done, and it's just all cutting up and everyone's laughing and doing ridiculous things. Um, but the after school programs, those were really, really fun. And those kids, there is nothing more heroic than like a 12-year-old who's decided they're going to save the day. That they
Yeah.
are fearless. They're ready for their character to die. They'll do anything they have to. I like they'll start negotiating with you if they roll poorly. "I won't eat any more of the brownie bite snacks, and they can have more brownie bite snacks." And like, you know what I mean? Like they're ready to do whatever needs to be done. It's awesome. Um, the Venn diagram circles of D&D, gifted programs, soccer, Cub Scouts. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Boy Scouts was actually the only place I could play D&D for a little while when Oprah. Oprah was why my D&D books got taken away for like 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn it, Oprah.
Yeah, she convinced my parents that it was I was going to immediately start doing hard drugs and worshiping Satan.
Really?
So
Are you sure?
yeah.
Oprah wasn't usually that dumb.
My parents.
That
they were like true and genuine hippies, like old hippies. And so my mom got into that stuff, and then there was all this fear around D&D, so my books got taken
yeah.
away.
We call that the Satanic Panic.
Yeah. Yeah. Satanic Panic. But I think I wasn't really around for the early part, like the true beginning of the Satanic
Oh, it
Packet.
goes. No, it carried on. So, I didn't go to work at TSR until the mid '90s, and the first month I was there, I was at a friend from college who was living in Chicago, and had gotten engaged, and so I went down to go to the wedding shower, the wedding, pre-announcement party, and the whole family was there, and my friend introduced me to the family and friends. He was really proud that I was working at TSR. My buddy,
Yeah.
he's working at TSR, and we're we're standing around talking, and I go to the kitchen to get something to drink, and I come back later, and he tells me when I went into the room, his aunt, or I guess the bride's aunt, leaned over to everyone and said, "He works for Satan." So they weren't so sure about me when I came back in the room.
Yeah, yeah. That's
He works for Satan.
chat.
Oh,
Chat has gotten pretty good here. Let's see. Gemming little kids or anyone new to role playing. Yeah, anybody who's getting to play for the first time is so much fun because it's easy to fall into habits and they haven't developed that yet. So they'll
yeah.
constantly surprise you. Absolutely. Yeah. Hard drugs and Satan, worse. Math and improv. Uh,
That's right. We're going to read history
yeah.
and do math.
Well, it's interesting. That actually was my starting point in game design. My parents took away our D&D books and took away our dice. So they let us keep, they gave me a book, like a diary basically. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, like my brain thought I have this big empty book and they took away the book with all the words in it, but I could write a new game in this book. I could write my own role playing game and then we'll have something to play.
Why not?
And then we had to come up with random number generator and we didn't have dice. So our idea was we took this, there was this nice soft bound thesaurus that was really easy to flip through. So
Yeah.
you'd flip through and then read the last number on the page, and that was your number of one through 10. Yeah. So the first one was a D10 system that was being played out of a paper bound diary and a book for random numbers.
Excellent.
Yeah, works for Satan, needed the health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Turns out Satan has pretty good dental.
He's got a lot of tusks that he has to,
Yeah.
or fangs that he has to care for. Yeah. Oh my God, we're going down memory lane tonight. It's getting intense in here.
That's all right. That's all right. You know, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. How are we
Um,
coming along there? It looked like you got
yeah.
two
So we
people
got
done already. Oh my God.
doing all right here. Moving along.
Nice. Nice.
So the funny thing is that if I have to, the reason I do this is that if I'm working off someone else's material, I can talk and do the drawing or the coloring.
Hmm.
But if I have to think up stuff on my own, or particularly with coloring, if I come to how to execute what I'm seeing, like for example, and switch back, I just posted last week, or I just posted a few days ago, this to my social media. One of the last ones I completed. This is based on a painting by Keith Parkinson. I did it here on the show a few times. I could not do that coloring of the sky and carry on a conversation because I had to think too hard about what I was doing, how to get an effect, and what to do it, and that is connected to my conversational part of my brain. But
patting your head and rubbing your belly at the same time.
Right. Coming here and doing flat colors or even shading on the flat colors does not engage that part of my brain. That's the secret of why this show works.
Now everyone knows your secret. Yeah. No, I don't know. I do wonder, like, I know our tastes change, right? Like when I was younger, I thought avocado was disgusting. I then turned into an adult and could not eat enough avocado.
Yeah.
I thought it was the most delicious thing ever. And then I got older and thought it was too fatty and no longer enjoyed it. I wonder, are there role-playing game tastes that follow that same shifting, that same
sure there are.
change?
And but certainly the for me, it's hard to be certain because it's been professional and I've been paid to care about things.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
when I don't care about them anymore, is it because no one's paying me and I'm just resetting to my normal proclivities, or have my tastes changed? Um,
Ah, some of the communities I built, I was heartbroken to like know that I had to step away from them, but at the same time, I was relieved. Is that like a weird thing to say? Like I definitely care about those communities still, but I was really happy it wasn't my problem anymore. Like, is
yeah,
that okay? Because that's how it felt. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
uh Mark. Mark said, if you were transported into the world of Dungeons and Dragons or all fantasy games and had to make your perfect character as yourself, what would you choose? Race, class, multi-class if you want. You want it, you got it. So we get to pick whatever we want. Hmm. Uh, human cleric of tear. That's a pretty easy one for me.
I think. I mean, I don't know. It's a weird. I'm trying to parse the difference between that question and what's your favorite character to play, because
Oh.
there's part of playing the character that I like, but if I had to live that for the rest of my life, I'm not sure. Because for me, it's clearly going to be a gnome rogue. That's what I play all the time. I I like playing I like playing gnome rogues. I like playing gnomes. And the skill based rogue in D&D is what I like to have. So would I want to live that life? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean the character kind of storylines I pick, I'm going to admit to exceptional nerdiness. I was deeply influenced by Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah,
Deeply influenced. She was the first, like, other than Wonder Woman, she was the first time I saw a strong female character and was like, holy crap, like that's amazing. And her storyline, if you think about it, is kind of tragic.
yeah,
Like she was a horrible, horrible monster, like killed babies level of horrible monster, and then tried to redeem herself later in life. And so I love playing characters that follow that really
right,
Xena warrior princess storyline. Yeah.
right. But do you want to be that horrible
No.
person that's redeeming themselves? No.
No.
Right. So, and if I think about it, when I first started gaming, when I first encountered D&D, um, it was magic users. It was spellcasters. I almost never play spellcasters now. I really don't. It doesn't appeal to me, um, and I don't know if that's. I mean, a lot of that is probably the mechanics. I just don't. I don't like dealing with um, spellcasting mechanics.
Yeah.
Uh, but
I think what Michael was saying might be along the same vein. He said, yes, I absolutely loved 3.5 and all my spreadsheets for my builds, but now I can't be bothered.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots I think that may be the the thing that ties a lot of people's answers to that question together is, I love this and now I can't be. It was so complicated, and when I got into it, I loved it, and now I just can't be bothered going back to that kind of complication level anymore. Give me something simpler. I just want to have fun.
Yeah, I still have a really hard time with one shots. I as a player, I don't feel any investment. Um and I kind of like entertain them at the table so that I can participate with my friends and have fun with my friends, but I'm never invested in them like I am a normal campaign.
Yeah, well, I mean, it makes sense, right? That's we talked a lot the last few weeks, or relatively speaking,
Hmm.
about RPGA. Like, we're talking about Gene Raby, and she was in charge of the RPGA and one of the main developers of the Living campaign style, right? And how in its early days, RPGA tournaments were all one shots like that, right? You came
Yeah.
in, you had a pre-generated character, you had pre-generated uh, motivations and all that, and which was great. But people really loved the living city where they could now have their own character and their own motivations, the way you do with your characters at home.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, it's particularly having spent if you hadn't had this lifetime of experience of making your characters and building your storyline, I think it would be easier for you uh, to find the enjoyment of the playing a character that's handed to you, and you run through it one time, and then next time you play a different character.
Yeah. Yeah. I Paul Rua said, Halfling Bard, I want to wander around being fat and happy and eating and drinking and telling stories and singing songs. Isn't that what we all want?
I was gonna say, if the question is what am I most like? Oh yeah,
This isn't this like everyone's dream? I thought that was what everyone else wanted too. That's what I want.
that's yeah. No, if we're gonna ask if so, here's a funny story. So in the 90s, mid 90s or so, a guy named Ken Whitman had gotten the rights uh, to, or was working with Mark Miller to bring back the original Traveler,
Oh,
uh, and uh, he did a thing at Gen Con and Origins the year that was happening, where you could to make your character. You at his booth, he had a series of very quick strength, dexterity, intelligence tests, and how you scored on them would give you your character, and then he'd print it up on a dog tag for you. You'd have because Traveler is a very kind of military bent to part of it, to part of the world. So you'd get a little dog tag with your name and your stats, and you could play the game with your dog tag at the con.
oh.
Ken, there's a lot. Ken's a complicated person in the history of the role playing game hobby business. But one thing he has always been brilliant at marketing and doing
Mm,
things to capture attention and get people talking about what he's doing and wanting to do more of it.
mm.
Keeping them as clients as customers, not his strongest suit.
That's I think that's one of the more interesting things. My last job in the video game industry was a year and a half ago.
Mm,
The last thing I worked on was I did I'm still under NDA. NDAs are ridiculous.
yeah.
But I'm allowed to say I was doing like a business review basically.
Okay.
Um but one of the things I really really loved with games was that community building and getting people to come together. And I've even trained a lot of junior community managers over the years, even in companies I didn't work with. My philosophy was always if we can make the community managers better, then we can make the community safer and more inclusive, and that's going to make just the gaming space in general better.
Right.
So I would do free training and leadership training and all kinds of stuff. And um, getting to work with those communities and getting to like cultivate a real sense of community where everyone's invested and everyone wants to participate. Oh, that's wonderful stuff, man. It's great when people are like when the super fans come to you and you have a super fan come to you and they say it changed their life.
Yeah.
like I don't know who wrote Gamma World Third Edition, but that game changed my life. If I ever ran into Loretta again, I don't know, buy her a steak dinner, I could, a
Yeah.
new car, whatever I can, whatever I have the means for at the time, she can have. Like she changed my life fundamentally. So yeah.
Gamma
Uh,
World Second Edition. That
or I
might
think it was third. It was
or,
when
or
they were
third
doing
edition.
the colored charts on the back.
I'm thinking that might be Zeb Cook.
Huh. Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know. That's just my gut instinct that rolls up.
Uh, Traveler, yeah. Traveler's another one that reads different to me now. These days, I see it as a whole bunch of cranky middle aged military veterans who've been given compulsory severance.
Traveler was weird in that you got yourself so old to play. Like you wanted, in order to get the best experience, like you're playing a 40, 50-year-old guy who's mustered out of the military, only has one leg, and that's who you start playing at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, handed a blaster and a bunch of free bus passes and told they can do
Right.
whatever they want, but they gotta go. Ah, Michael, always on the spot. James Ward
Oh,
was
did
apparently
Jim Ward
being.
do that? Huh.
Oh, there you go. Oh, and we write and organize role playing game books totally differently than they used to be written and organized. It's night and
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Well, again, that's not the color I want. Uh, the coming out of miniatures gaming and coming out of military miniatures gaming, the
Hmm.
uh, yeah, it's so much of what games are is um, still harkens back to its early days coming out of that field,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's weird that a lot of the assumptions, particularly as we get into more narrative and literary style games, they still
Mm.
are carrying the baggage and have assumptions that come from military miniatures history of the form.
Well, it's the question when you're. Oh, this is a question that we've gone back and forth a lot. My editor that I'm working with right now on my current project is I constantly have to remind him that we're intentionally trying to be more simulationist. We're not trying to be as narrative. But you definitely have those two sides of the coin. You definitely have the games that want to be even more narrative, and so they're kind of gamifying narrative elements, and the
Yeah,
games that want to be more simulationist, and so they're very much like you should be playing this with miniatures, you should be playing this on a tabletop. Yeah, I'm been hopelessly corrupted by miniatures games in years and years of playing Warhammer 40, being a 40K judge. That's that was the we had a game design problem we called the Logolus problem.
yeah,
There's Logolus is running around. I think they're called elephants, the big giant elephant things with
yeah.
like a huge fortress on their back. Anyway, he's killing elephants and random evildoers and all kind. He's like nuking people. There's a whole battlefield going on, and I. One of the first things we did is we sat down with D&D 5th edition and I said, okay, here's the Legolas problem.
Yeah.
How do we make this work in D&D? How long does it take in 5th edition D&D to have that fight? And it's like, if you're simulating all of it, it's like months.
Right.
like,
Yes.
like it would take forever to get through all of that. So yeah, figuring out better ways to solve the Legolas problem. I actually had one of my friends who's also a game designer tell me one night this isn't a solvable problem. To which I love it when people say that. I feel like they threw down the gauntlet and they're challenging me to figure it out. And so I was like, done, done. We're figured. This is the most important thing in my life now. We're gonna figure it out. Yeah, yeah, hopelessly corrupted.
Well, but
Michael's built.
there are so many different versions of it. Now, anyone who's ever done any game design for a licensed Marvel or DC game or Star Wars, even more
Mm,
so, uh, will know the pain of something new happening in the next issue or the next movie, and well, how do they do that? Why can't I do that?
mm-hmm.
Right? And the question of, well, Spider-Man just did X in this particular issue. I should be able to do that. What are the rules? And I'll do it whenever I want. And
Yeah.
understanding that so much of what happens in any of those narrative versions is based on what the needs of the narrative are. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the challenges that you have in making a game version of it is that uh, the gamers are not going to behave by what's best for the narrative. They're going to do what's best for their character.
I mean, you could have stopped it. Just the players aren't going to behave. I think
Right.
that's very accurate. I think you nailed it right there.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're coming at it from a different one. I mean, that's another thing that comes up all the time in the difference between fantasy role playing games, the traditional uh, Tolkien-esque fantasy role-playing game, and a superhero game. In a
Mm,
superhero story, in a Tolkien story, you fight everything and you kill it, and it's a battle to the death always.
mhm.
In a superhero story, it's almost never a battle to the death. The villain often gets away in a way that the heroes could have prevented. There's It's often not even fought to a standstill. It's fought to a, well, all right, the story's over. The conditions have been met. Ah, curse you, Reed Richards. I'll get you next time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but players won't let that happen in their game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's well, and you have the BBEG, the big bad evil guy, and you have the problem that mechanically sometimes the big bad evil guy isn't being supported in a way. Like I can't even begin to go into the problems with fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons, which I still play and have a 9-person game every month, I guess. But there's mechanical support for telling some of the narrative stories that you want to just isn't there.
Yeah,
Um, Game science has evolved so much since the creation of RPGs. It wasn't really a subject of scholarship until this century, really.
yeah,
Now it's a master's program at Carnegie Mellon. Well, that's, I've told Stan this before. When I started trying to learn game design, the only thing available to me was the Floyd County, Virginia Public Library, which is a single tiny building, and other people. There wasn't, like, I didn't have internet access. So I would play any game I could get my hands on. There were no books on game design. Um, so it was just trial and error. I would take designs to school with me, or on the school bus with me, and try and get people to play them so that they could tell, basically most of the time, so they could tell me it sucked. But that was, that's how I learned, was just like
right.
trial and error.
Yeah,
uh, or intentionally breaking other people's stuff. Palladium Books had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness. And I was convinced that I could somehow come up with a way to break that, like mechanically. And so it was every single time there was a new RPG that one of the people around me was going to play, that was the first thing I'd gravitate to. I'd be like, can I borrow your book? Can I read your book? Etc. So yeah, but it has changed quite a bit, quite a bit. Yeah.
it's a whole new world, as they say.
Yeah. Trial and error is more fun, don't you think? Less gatekeeping of your brain. I'll be honest with you. I am jealous of the resources available to anyone who's having that same life experience that I had, that grew up as a kid that wanted a- anything and everything to do with anything that was a tabletop game. Those kids have YouTube videos by geniuses. There's the guy who did like Magic the Gathering card design for like 20 years. He has a YouTube video called 20 Lessons for 20 Years. When I am training a junior game designer, that is the first thing they get. I hand them that video. I say, you watch this video from front to back, take notes. I'm going to ask you about it because he's a genius. He's just a genius. That's all there is. He's just a genius.
Who? You know what? I'm not familiar with this. Who did that?
Oh, I can't remember his name. Give me 2 seconds. It's a GDC talk, and it's one of the longer ones. There we go. 20 years, 20 lessons. And that's going to be noisy. Oh, take me to YouTube. Take me to YouTube.
Take me to YouTube. Take me to your YouTube.
There we go. Mark Rosewater.
Oh, God.
It's brilliant. I don't know if you have a relationship with that man, but it's genius game design lessons.
All right, you know what? I will check it out.
You should. I love it.
I can't believe I just did that on a live stream, which is going to live on the video. This is going to come back to haunt me. I will say no more about this. I will accept that. I will check that out, and I give everyone. Someone tells me there's a good resource, I'm going to check it out, and if it's good, I will love it.
He's able to. I think the real value in it is, I could spend a week talking to a junior game designer every single day, talking to them about the iterative process and making weights for things, and working with the tools that are available and not reinventing the wheel. Or they could just watch his 2-hour video and all my work is done.
There were like 8 people. I thought, oh, maybe it's this guy. I was not ready for you to tell me it was Mark Rosewater.
Well, this is story time. If you want to tell some stories,
I do not. I really, really do not.
Oh, well, I mean, Michael said I just got all the After the Bomb games at Page from the publisher. Oh, great guy. Yeah, there is a reaction with a story behind it. I don't think we're going to get that tonight, Mike. I think it is now up to you to lean on him in the future. Oh, everybody's got somebody.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything negative to say publicly about Mark.
Well, we've all had interesting. There was a game designer I worked with for quite a little while.
And you know what? I mean, in fact, that's even worse. Mark is a super smart guy and a really good designer, and in nothing I say is meant to detract from that.
Yeah. We get it.
Not
it's all right.
Not all personalities get along.
Yeah. Truly. Yeah. No,
I'll say this: Mark has never done anything bad to me. And I haven't, and I suppose if he heard this, he might be like, what the hell does Stan have against me? Because we haven't interacted in any way. On the other hand, Mark is a divisive figure amongst people who have worked in the building. Some people love him. Some people don't love him.
Yeah.
I'm not in the love him category. I'm not in the far side of the other. Either. Yeah. Well, that's all I'm going to say on the subject.
Well, we got a little out of him, Mike. I feel like that was teamwork there. Good job, man.
I realized that it was worse to say nothing.
Well, I worked with a game designer for a while. I had like a 3-month project that I was working on. I was super proud of it when I got it done. And then I discovered when I was presenting that he had actually taken an enormous amount of credit for this project that he had never seen. He didn't know anything about until I presented it. Yeah. So there's always people we work with.
Yeah.
There's been some programmers I worked with in the past that I'm thankful I will never work with those people
Yeah.
again. Yeah, absolutely,
Well, Mark, I
absolutely.
mean, Mark was in charge of Magic for a long time, and it
Mm,
prospered amazingly under him. So God knows I'm not going to start casting aspersions.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I've been playing RPGs since the early 80s, and this is one of the most exciting times in game design. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
People are really breaking down RPGs at a molecular level and coming up with wild new ideas. Yeah. Stolen credit dweebs are the worst. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't the first time it had happened to me, but you know what? I trust people right out of the gate, and I love people right out of the gate. If hate can be blind, so can love. And that gets me burned all the time, and I'm totally fine with that. I'm totally fine with that. If that keeps getting me burned the rest of my life, I am not going to change. I'm going to keep loving people and trusting them right out of the gate, and that's just how that's going to go. So,
There's
uh,
a one of my favorite movies is Silverado,
mm,
and there's something that Kevin Kline's character says in the one of the first scenes he's in. He's describing meeting some guys and they decided to ride together. And he says, "I figure you can go through life like everyone's your friend or no one is. Doesn't make
yep.
much difference."
Yeah, yeah. I choose to be friends,
Yeah,
just friends with everybody. Yeah. Yeah, life is too damn short to be walking around on high alert all the time. Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I don't want to live like that. Sounds horrible. Nah. But yeah. No, it's not. It wasn't the first time that someone else had taken credit for my work, but I'll be honest with you, in the gaming industry, I'm not aware of it happening as much in tabletop, but in the video game industry, you have a lot of people who step up um, and take a lot of credit where they didn't actually contribute anything. So, and that's just it just happens,
the
you know.
tabletop industry.
Is it the same there?
There's a lot of so. Let's just take just as the maybe the best known and still one of the most controversial ones, which no one will ever know the 100% truth of, which
Hmm.
is the Gygax and Arneson question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Right? There were years where Gygax see, and I'm not even sure that he's guilty of it. It was promoted that he did it. It was him, and a lot of people believed it. And
Yeah.
Arneson was out, and although he there were contracts and legal actions and payments and different things, it was just out. And there's a lot of people who carried a lot of bitterness
Hmm.
towards one side or the other because they felt personally involved in that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of any several of the D&D worlds have similar. They were the one or two people may have had the main idea or may have done the most work, and they may not be
Mhm.
the same people or may have done this, and only one or two of them will be noted as the creators of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And there's there are people who still have friendships have been lost over that, and people who still walk around carrying grudges because of that. Not a lot of it's public, but
Yeah.
and some of it is just like, all right, I'm over it, but I'll never trust that person again, right, or whatever. So it's it's too big, it's too small a pool for there to be a lot of publicly known uh, history to that, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of history to that.
Yeah, I mean, from a also from a PR perspective, like, which is something I deal with a lot. You it is sometimes preferable. Let's say Stan and I wrote a game together and the
Mm,
game came out. It doesn't matter how much from a PR perspective, because I know this as a PR person. It doesn't matter how much work I actually put in the book. I really need to, even if I wrote 90% of it, I really need Stan's name to be the one at the top.
sure.
And I really need Stan to be the one that gets the credit for it, because recognition of him contributing to the product. Well, but in all seriousness, recognition of him contributing to the product means more sales. So I can pick, either I can feed my pride or I can feed my paycheck. And
Right.
so, right? So, like from a PR perspective, you don't have a choice. You know the right choice is to promote the heavy hitter, and
The
everyone else is going to get more money out of it. But
the
yeah.
problem it becomes even more problematic when there isn't a heavy hitter and it's the Jobs and Wozniak, right? It's the
Mhm.
um, uh,
Lee and Kirby as
Lee and Ditko,
Palrua, just
Lee
yeah,
and Kirby, Lee and Ditko. You're right, and someone needs someone is better at being the face man, or the
yeah,
company just wants to make it simple, so they make one person the face man, or just one person appears on a popular show, the other one appears on the show that no one saw, and suddenly it becomes uh, the the truth that the public knows that this person is responsible for X, Y, or Z,
right.
and once that's settled, it it's kind of hard. Once the public thinks something, it becomes true to a certain level.
Yeah.
It's the
I
truth
mean,
that's out there.
it can be even more, and this is kind of like a behind the curtain thing for anyone that doesn't know anything about the gaming industry, but um there are like Bethesda games. Oh, why am I forgetting his name? The CEO, the guy who's the seen as the creative vision behind all of the Bethesda products.
Mm,
He takes an enormous amount of flack, but is given a ton of credit. That's intentional. He is not sitting and programming random features. He is
right,
not 3D modeling. He is not doing any of the work to make that game come out. What he's doing is taking it on the nose publicly, so that he's essentially shielding his team of developers from that blowback. If they don't like something, then he gets chewed up. If they do like something, that he gets the praise. And it's easy to be like, well, I did all this work, I want the praise. Okay, but if you want that, you also have to take the bullets. You have to be in the line of fire.
right.
Like both things are true. So yeah, I think for a lot of companies, it's very smart to just pick a head person, throw them out there as your public person. Yeah, I will say, as a PR guy, I would like less CEOs to talk publicly about their companies. It would make my day a lot easier if they would stop doing that. Pick
All right,
someone out of the company.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a second here and talk about some of what I've been doing, because I talk about the art sometimes here too. So maybe see, I put the flat colors down, and I don't know if anyone noticed, but um, so the baboons, the baboon-ish creatures in the background, I've changed the color of their line art from black to a dark brown, so that they will feel more in the background. People often talk about that. I don't know if you saw me do it, but they were black. There was black lines for a second, and I popped it, and now I'm looking at this. We've got the flat colors done for all the characters, and then I'm going to go in and on each layer do some shading uh, to
Yeah.
to make them feel a little more three-dimensional ish. And then when I do the background, which I haven't done at all here yet, that'll be an even lighter color so that it feels even further behind what's going on there.
Are you going to do the whole scene, like the backdrop and the, like, I don't know,
I
concrete
will.
wall or
There
whatever it
will
is?
be a backdrop. But look at this. There's not much of a backdrop to begin with in this
Yeah.
particular one. But yes, I will. I'll do that. And particularly for this drawing where it's so linear, I'm gonna wait until I finish the characters in the positions I want them to be in before I start figuring out where I'm gonna put what on the background.
Hmm.
So I mean, in previous drawings, like the one we were looking at before, if I break that down here, but I've got the characters on one set
Ah,
of layers, not even one layer, it's one set of layers. And I've got the shrapnel on another layer, and the tower on one. And each of these is groups of layers, not just a single layer. And then the clouds are one, and the sky is another. So, uh, but when I did the sketches, and the initial line drawings, I drew everything out here because it was all important to the design of the image.
yeah.
With the one we're looking at now, the design of this image is these are basically just parallel lines which are breaking up color blocks in the background. So I don't need to worry about that in getting the proportions and the difference where the characters are and what they look like compared to each other. Then I can drop that background behind them.
And are you going to add the evil, like, shadow blacked out monkeys in the
I
back as
don't
well?
know. I don't know. That'll because so one of the challenges I have whenever I do this is that I'm taking a drawing of a certain perspective. Usually, it's a tall, 8.5 by 11 perspective. In this case, it's
Yeah.
kind of a rectangular, a vertical, a horizontal rectangle, right? Uh, it's just that kind of looking at it, maybe 2 by 3, 2 tall by 3 wide rectangle. Um, and I'm moving it into a square. So that's
Mm.
part of what, to my mind, it forces me to not just copy but reinterpret it. Right? I, I'm doing uh, my homage and my
Mm.
interpretation of it into a cartoony medium and into a different shape. And so when you do that, there are things you can't bring around and
Right.
choices you need to make. So
Mm.
often characters will get left out, kind of cropped off to the side, or like in this, if we just look at it, where this baboon is nothing like where I have him over here.
Yeah.
Right? He's way off to the side. He's doing the same thing, pretty much the same pose, but I've moved the angle and where he's at to so it'll reproduce in this square format. Right? Same kind of thing of where this baboon is compared to the other person. So, is there enough room when this is said and done for me to work in those shadowy ones in the background? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael, what is Aaron working with nowadays? I'm working on, uh, well, I don't, they're other people's projects and I'm just doing the game design on them. But basically, I'm working with a guy who his primary job is actually like costumes. Like if you see a PlayStation commercial and they have people in like the actual outfit, like the full, I would call it cosplay for does that. But one of his side loves is drawing. So he came up with a fantasy world or I would call it like a post-apocalyptic world, and he wants like a tabletop skirmish style game made out of that. So I'm working on rules for that right now. And then the other guy is again an artist, um, who did a series of short stories with a bunch of New York Times best-selling authors. And he has this like whole world he's thought of, and he would like a grand strategy style game, something like Shogun made for that. And then I have my personal project, which is a GM-less role-playing game, which sounds preposterous, but it is in fact a thing. um, and then, but again, remember, don't think all the players are contributing to some narrative. Think uh like of how corrupted I am by miniature skirmish games. So it's more like that. Um, and then I'm working with a group, or I'm determining if I'm going to work with a group. They do suicide prevention for veterans, and they do a bunch of like gaming servers, like Space Engineers and Minecraft and oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the other one, and Project Zomboid and a bunch of other games. And so they offer some supportive services, and they offer places for them to game and socialize and stuff like that. So I was going to do some PR work for them, but that's all like free stuff. And then I have like private clients, which private clients are complicated. Basically, the way it works is yeah, it's private. Basically, a private client. If I write, pretend one of my private clients is famous and they say something stupid on social media. My job is to fix that. So I need to tell them how to back out of the dumb thing they said, issue an apology if necessary, what they need to do in order to get their footing back. Now, if you know that I wrote the apology, that completely undermines the quality of them making an apology. So I can't really talk about the clients I work with, because it on social media, you're like, oh, this person said hi to me. Probably not. That was probably me or someone like me getting paid to say hi to you. Um, but yeah, so that's the stuff. And revive Gamma Rotters while you're at it. If I had a way to get the rights to the Gamma World IP, I am telling you right now, I would drop everything I'm working on, and it's the only thing I would work on until it was done. I would crank out Gamma World. I would crank. They went with Armor Gamma Knights, this tabletop war game kind of thing they tried to do. I would completely revive Gamma World if I had my chance. Um, but yeah, as far as GM-less, so, oh, all right, I'm here. Sorry, it lagged for me, and I was worried I
Yeah,
was
no,
dead
you were starting to break up a little.
there was yeah, and I would move in with you. More are always welcome. I adopt all my friends. So um but yeah, I would as far as GMless is concerned, think um League of Dungeoneers is a great game that tried to give you that feeling of kind of a like an OSR dungeon crawling feeling, but I don't want to just do dungeons. I want to do a whole world. So I want you to feel like you're playing a role playing game, but it's you don't have a GM to do arbitration, so you have to have mechanics tell all of the story and do everything. And there's a lot of challenges with that. So I've been working on that project for years now, trying to get it done. That's actually where we were solving the Logolus problem, because if you have a character, I'd like you to be able to have like a town and an army if you want, and if you want to have a big war battle, I have to make it so your D&D character has as much detail as they did when they were dungeon crawling on a battlefield with a bunch of other people, and it can't slow down. So that's where that Logolus problem came in, trying to solve that. But yeah, there are a ton of role playing games if I get the rights to. If I could get the rights to the old face rip Marvel superheroes game, I would do something with that.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah, there are tons of old games that I would love to like bring those IPs back. I think Gamma World actually got picked up by is it Savage Worlds? Uh, I can't remember right now. Gamma World got picked up and revived by someone else. I just think I would like to do more with it than what's been done with it. So analog random tables and weighted results, no. And the reason no for simulating mass combat is because my experience with like I wrote a game back in 2011, a tabletop miniatures game, and I worked with Danversine Games for a little while. We never actually came to terms about finishing the product, but we did work together for about a year and a half. Um, that game, I learned a lot about how much abstraction players are willing to accept. If you abstract away a bunch of interesting stuff out of the system, like take AD&D second edition, there was battle system, I believe is what it was called, and it
Yep.
complete yeah, thank you, Stan. It completely abstracted away all of the cool mechanics that your D&D character could do. And it was, I think that's what undermined it as a product, is that abstraction. So my goal is to have no abstraction and still make it so you can have a giant mega battle. So it took years to solve.
That's a, you crazy dreamer.
No, that part's actually done. That's that's actually finished. Stan will be one of the first people that gets a copy of it when we finally get it there. So
Woohoo!
yeah. My white whale is lace and steel. It's such an amazing game and nothing else is like it. Interesting.
Wow,
Okay. Well, that's very cool.
that's a deep cut.
Yeah, I have never heard of it before. So that's going on I have tabs open specifically for people saying things like that.
Lace and Steel, that was a Fantasy Games Unlimited game? Is that right? Who wrote that up there? Is that
That
that's
was Paul
Paul?
Rua.
Paul? Was that a Fantasy Games Unlimited product, or am I thinking of something else?
Uh, Interesting. Oh, this is someone unboxing the old lace and steel. Interesting. All right. Yeah. No, I'm totally going to look this up. I've got a PDF right here in front of me, written by Paul Kidd. Hopefully that's the correct
Mm,
one. 1998 to 2003. All right.
oh, okay. It's not what I'm thinking of then.
Yeah.
All right, but
Uh,
Paul did a bunch of interesting stuff. I will be curious to hear.
yeah. Um, Put out by Tag, the Australian gaming group. Paul Kidd. Mutant Crawl Classics, Mutant Year Zero, two independent GW-esque versions. Pace Setter Games has Gamma X on the docket, but it's many years out. Metamorphosis Alpha. Yeah. There's after Gamma World got, and I will die on this hill. Fallout.
I like
the
I like any sentence that starts like that.
the Fallout video games are Gamma World. Now, I
Yeah.
think they did more than enough to customize the universe to make it their own setting, but there should be at least a nod given to Gamma World for kind of setting the stage for them. So yeah. Poly Kid these days. Oh, interesting. Okay. Licensed by James Word Estate to a development company, but no word on it yet. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, there are tons of old games I would love to revive and bring back. But the problem, you face this problem in the video game industry all the time. You have Age of Empires 1, and then you go to make Age of Empires 2, and the hardest thing to face as a game designer is temptation. You're constantly tempted to reinvent the wheel. So when you look at a game like Age of Empires 1, you say, oh, there's all these cool things we could do with it, and all these new things we could do with it, and all these changes we could make to how it originally was. And so you feel like you're adding something to it, but what you're actually doing is screwing over all your veterans who liked the game the way it was and just want a bigger version or a prettier version of the game they previously had. And unfortunately, I have been known to give in to temptation from time to time. I'm
Well,
also,
that's an interesting thing to have a conversation about because there's it's a challenge, right? You find that anytime you're trying to take something that existed and has an existing audience and bring it forward, you can't make something that is for that audience. You need to have a new audience, and
Hmm.
so what the old fans love about it, very often these are, I guess, the best word. These are blemishes or warts in modern view. But you either have accepted it or you've managed to uh, pretty them over, and you don't care
Yeah.
about them anymore. But the new audience won't do that, and so you've got to you gotta you got to make a product for the time that you're selling it in, and um, you're going to lose some of your existing audience over that, and they're going to complain that you're just ruining their game. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're not making a game for them. What is the more
Yeah.
realistic way of saying that? It's not for them, and they're unhappy because they love it more than anyone else, and they do. But you're trying to make a new audience, and so you're making a new thing, and it's a dangerous game to play with the emotions of the fan base.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the most challenging things I've faced because I mean, even if you look at it just from a financial analysis, right? Let's pretend that's your only investment in this. You're a CEO, you just want to make money with the product. You really want to retain as many of those old players as you can
Right,
because they're guaranteed purchases of the new product.
but they're not enough, right? If that's
They're
all you
not a
get, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no. One of the big hassles in the video game world is where multiple people hold the rights and aren't interested in reviving it. A revival of No One Lives Forever keeps getting stymied by that. Yeah. Uh, I love the story when a reporter asked Raymond Chandler how he felt about Hollywood ruining his books, quote, ruining his books. He pointed across the shelves and said, "What's ruined? They're still there."
yeah, and that's and in the end, that's a very close to what I was going to. If I had let myself go on the rant I wanted to, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, your game is still there. You can always go play it. I tell you, forget about people making new versions of games. It's always been fascinating to me how many people stopped playing a game because it stopped being published. Right? The super fans don't, but there's so many people who say, "Well, oh, I really miss this game. It's still there. Play
Yeah.
it."
It's an interesting phenomenon because you're right. But as someone who's as a former Bene Gesserit, the humans want to be doing what everyone else is doing.
Yeah,
That's what you usually end up with is clusters of people wanting to be doing what other people are doing. But yeah, yeah. And yes, Michael, SimCity 3 did that with SimCity 4 100%. 100%. SimCity 4 was a soul crushing experience for me because I was so in love with those games. I played the first SimCity on a Mac where I also played Sim Life.
hmm.
Yeah, which is a game I'm fairly certain no one has heard of in a long time, but the comic book industry is one to look at. There
Yeah,
are
yeah.
multiverses of Superman. They're all else worlds. Forgotten Realms exists in 2E, 3E, 4E, 5E. Yeah. Yeah. When designing settings, I was designing a world setting and it took a really, really long time um, because I was trying to think of how to future proof it. And Stan, you must have done this at some point in your life where you're like trying to solve an unsolvable problem.
Yeah.
Like like you're the guy who's going to figure this out, you know. I'm sitting here thinking there's got to be a way I can future proof this, you know. But there really isn't. There really isn't. Someone else somewhere along the line will have an idea that is hopefully even better than my idea and they
And
will make the world better.
one of the reasons it's not possible is you need to know that whatever the future version of it is influenced by so many other things that are happening around it that you can't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. There's no perfect thing. It's I mean, we could go on a Star Wars rant if you want, but like there's the original Star Wars was perfect for when it came out, and then the new Star Wars movies that when they were new, episode 1, 2 and 3 were perfect for when they came out. There are a lot of people that are not happy with those movies at all. um, and then what is it? 7, 8, and 9 now. These are the newer ones that they finished off kind of the Skywalker bloodline story. Um, those were the right movies for when they came out. There are a lot of
Yeah,
vocal Star Wars fans that absolutely hated them, but the movies killed at the box office.
right.
Like they absolutely dominated, and there has to be a reason for that, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
Plus,
the thing for me is the other way to say that is who the audience is, right? It's not so much, or I mean, you can say it. They were right for their times, but they went for a different audience, and it was
mhm,
right for that audience. And you wanted it to be for you. We wanted it to be for us.
yeah. Yeah. There's there's my thing that current D&D doesn't have isn't the thing I ever hear anybody else talk about. But there used to be these big monster manual binders that just had pages in them for AD&D second edition, and
Yeah,
every single manual entry had an ecology of the creature.
yeah.
um, the fact that those aren't around anymore is nightmare fuel to me. It makes me so sad.
Wait,
I want those back.
which part of that? The format or the ecology?
Just the ecologies. Yeah. They made the world make more sense to me, you know? Why in the hell, like if we really think about the ecology of a dragon, right? A dragon goes and lands on top of a mountain and lives there. If it spends any amount of time awake and eating regularly, it's just a food desert for 30 miles in every direction. You know, there could be like whole devastated forests and stuff, and that's never how it's portrayed in stories. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's another thing that is a constant war for the people making the products, and it's part of it. It's a narrative version of your simulationist versus abstraction,
Narrative.
right?
Yeah.
It's how real do you want it to be, and to what definition of real. One of the things you always have a problem with in any game, whether you're designing it or running it as a game master, is a player who knows too much about the subject. Or that's judgmental. A player who knows as much or more than you about the subject,
Mm-hmm.
right? And even if it's not more, a player who wants a certain fidelity to what happens in the real world in the
Yeah.
fantasy adaptation of it.
Well, I love when I'm GMing to throw in some random details. I decided my players were playing at Waterdeep, and so I they were playing in the time of year when you would be slaughtering pigs for meat. And so I went into a bunch of like side detail about the availability of pig, and the people were outside cooking like pork cracklings in these massive oversized woks, and they were making food for everyone, and they were handing out some free stuff, and the players were walking through this was supposed to be me telling the story of players walking through a market area and why it was so lively right now. One of the players had worked on a pig farm. And so I spent the next 45 minutes in the weeds just getting taught a lesson about pig. Yeah. So you do what you can. That's I'm just trying to tell the story right now, guys. Can we ease up? Yeah. Oh man. All right. It's 9 here, and I would love to get to see my wife before I go to
Ah,
bed.
that's totally fair. Holy cats, 2 hours, 2 hours flies. All right, so
Two
where are we at here?
hours.
I've finished the flats. I'm working on I knew I wasn't going to finish this tonight, so this is a really good place for me because I also need to go take some bio responsibility.
Mm.
Yeah, so here's where we're at. Uh, it'll be another few hours of work to finish it, but it's well along. I think that those of you who are subscribers to the newsletter, the 50 Years in the Dungeon.substack.com, if you're a subscriber there, you are the first ones to get to see it when it's done. You will have gotten a copy of the sketch version in an earlier one. In fact, when I finish, those of you who've been there uh, over the last few months know that I will also do a coloring book version of just the line drawing for you guys to download and have fun coloring on your own. So 50 years in a dungeon.substack.com. If you're not there already, what's wrong with you? Aaron, it has been great hanging out and chatting with you. Thank you very much for coming along.
I love hanging out and talking with you. And the chat was awesome. I loved getting to sit and talk to everybody. So that was
yeah,
really
you
cool
know
too.
what? I got some fun people in my chats.
You do. You do.
Um, so hold on, I'm gonna go do an outro, and then you and I can say goodbye, and I'll send regards to your wife too before you head off. Thank you for coming, and hopefully I can get you back on again sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, there we go. We've got about 2 hours of coloring done on the piece for the Lost Library. All the flats are in. I'm starting to do the shading. As I say, I will finish that up. And if you are a subscriber to the newsletter, 50 years in the dungeon.substack.com, you'll be the first ones to see it. If you are enjoying what I'm doing and you want to be a part of the broader Stan community, you may want to consider joining my Patreon community. There are free versions. Let's say the newsletter is free and there's a paid version. Patreon is generally about paying, but there is also a free version. So go join there and you can see what's going on. You get all the updates for the things I'm working on. I make sure every piece of drawing that I do out and that gets released publicly gets delivered to your email box, so you don't have to worry about finding it. And it's just a fun place. So come on over and join. I will be back tomorrow night with an episode of Random Encounters, the improv cartooning show. So hopefully you can join me then. Until then, take care, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.